We are doing 2-4 today, writing linear equations. Again, super review of Algebra 1, shouldn't be too big a deal. The only way it gets a little bit harder is they make the numbers not so pretty. So you should be okay. These should be pretty fast. All right, writing linear equations. So we have slope-intercept form, which we already talked about in 2-3 a bit. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. So with that, you always want to make sure that if you're graphing it, which I don't think we're doing today, but that's fine, you go in alphabetical order. So you're going to do the b first and then the m. But we'll get to that later. Point slope form is another option. Y minus y1 equals m x minus x1, where x1, y1 is a point given to you typically, and m is a slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slope, opposite reciprocal. Here's how you can remember it. Parallel has an A, same has an A. Parallel lines have same slopes. So if I have one slope of, 4/3, then a parallel slope is still 4/3. With perpendicular, if I have one slope of 4/3, then the perpendicular slope, remember from geometry, that's perpendicular, is going to be the opposite, so negative, reciprocal, so flip. 4/3 and negative 3/4. Okay? That's kind of it. Now we're just going to do a few. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line described. We typically stick with slope-intercept form. You can always do point slope if you really, really want to, but we don't really get into that until a bit later. Okay, so I always start, if they say slope-intercept form, well, let's write that down. Y equals mx plus b. So when you're done with it, m needs to be a number and b needs to be a number. X and y are going to stay x and y in the end. Okay, so with this, plug in m and plug in b if you can. So I know m. I'm going to go ahead and put in negative 1/4. I don't have b. They didn't give me that. So let's fill everything in really quickly. I need b. What did they give me though? If it passes through the point 12, negative 4, what is 12 and what is negative 4? It's x and y, isn't it? So instead of an x, I'm going to put 12, and instead of a y, I'm going to substitute negative 4. So let's do that. Negative 4 equals negative 1/4 x plus 12. Oops, sorry. X is 12. Sorry, excuse me. Just kidding. Negative 4 equals negative 1/4 x is 12 plus b. We're looking for b. You ready? So now, what's negative 1/4 times 12? You can use the calculator if you have to. But it's negative 3, right? What's in the way of being alone? Of b being alone? The negative 3 is. How do you get rid of it? You're going to add it to both sides, right? So if you add 3 here, it eliminates. But then you have to add 3 here. So what's negative 4 plus 3? Negative 1 equals b is left over. But go back to the directions. They said write an equation in slope-intercept form. So we have to have y equals m as a number, which we said m was negative 1/4. X plus b is a number. I'm not going to put plus minus 1. That's weird. If you have two signs next to each other, figure out what it should be. A plus and a minus is just a minus. So this is our final answer. Y equals mx plus b, where m is a number and b is a number. On number 19, again, I start with what I know I need. Y equals mx plus b. They said put it in slope-intercept form, so I intend to. Did they give me m? No. Did they give me b? No. Can I find m? Sure. I can use my slope formula from a section or two ago, where m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and I could find m, couldn't I? Here's x1, here's y1. Here's x2, here's y2. Pause it for just a second and find m for me. So if you plug that in, you're going to get negative 4 minus 12 over negative 2 minus negative 4. So when you do that math, you're going to end up with negative 16 over 2, which is negative 8. So m is negative 8. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. Y equals negative 8x plus b. Now what do I need? I need the b, right? Do I have it? No, I don't. Can I find it? Sure. Pick either of these. You have an x and a y, don't you? If you plug it in for x and y, all you're missing is b. So you pick whichever one looks easier to you. This one, sure, that's fine. Put in x, put in y. Or this one, put in x, put in y. It doesn't matter. So you pick one and you find b. Either ordered pair you pick, you should get negative 20. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I believe that I used the first one probably, so I'm going to plug this one in. Y is 12, x is negative 4, plus b. So 12 equals, what's negative 8 times negative 4? 32 plus b. Subtract 32 from both sides, and you get negative 20. So my final answer is y equals m, which we said was negative 8, x plus, but I'm not going to do plus because it's minus 20. M and B are plugged in as numbers. Take a second, look that over. If you have a question, write it down. On number 23, we're going to change perpendicular to parallel because we're going to work with perpendicular on the next question anyway. So 23, change the directions to say parallel instead, and we'll do it that way. So we want the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Start there. It's going to pass through 4, 2, and it's going to be parallel to the line y equals negative 2x plus 3. Okay, let's start again. I need m, I need b. Do I have m? Not technically. No, they didn't give it to me yet. Do I have b? Excuse me. No, I don't have b either, but I can find those things. If you look here, this is in slope-intercept form, isn't it? Y equals m x plus b. So what's the slope of this line here? It's negative 2, isn't it? And they said it's parallel to this line. So if the slope of this line is negative 2, then what's the slope of our line? Well, it's negative 2 as well. Now that I have that information, I am done with that. Cross it off. Don't use it again. There's nothing else in here that's going to help me. All that helped me was the slopes were the same because they were parallel lines. That 3 is not helpful. That is not the y-intercept of our line. It could be, but it's not necessarily going to be. So now I just go back to this piece of information. I'm missing b, but all I have is x and y, just like before. So I'm going to plug this in for x, I'm going to plug this in for y, and see what b is. Pause it and you try. Okay, if I put 2 in for y, and I put 4 in for x, let's solve that. We get 2 equals negative 8 plus b. I'm going to add 8 to both sides, so b is 10. So y equals mx plus b, negative 2x plus 10. If you have a question, jot it down. Last question. Again, the directions said put in slope-intercept form. So start there. What do we need to replace with numbers? M and B. Do we have M? Do you see M equals this? I don't either. Do we have B? No. Can we find M? Yes. It's perpendicular to this line. This line is already in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. What is M here? It's 4, isn't it? They said perpendicular. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. What's opposite of a positive? A negative. What's the opposite of 4 over 1? 1 over 4. So the slope of my line is going to be negative 1 over 4. I cannot use this anymore. This is no longer helpful to me. So now I have my x, I have my y. I'm going to plug those in to find b. Pause it, find b. If you plug 2 in for y and you plug 10 in for x, keep going. 2 is equal to, that's, I don't know how you want to write it, but I just wrote it as negative 5 halves plus b. And then I added 5 halves to both sides. So 2 plus 2 1/2 essentially is going to be 4 1/2. You can write that one any way you want to. It's the slope that has to be a fraction. So you could put 4.5, you could put 4.5, you can write it any way you want. So your final answer is y equals m negative 1/4 x plus b, 4.5. Or 9/2, or whatever. Those are all fine. As long as this is a fraction, we're good. If you have any questions, jot them down. Let me know tomorrow. If you want to see a different way to do these, you can. You could always go back and draw a picture if you're more geometrically minded, and I can help you that way instead.